VikesNow. I am Tyler Ireland. With me today is Dakota Rose. We used to do these Friday segments with Dustin on a weekly basis, and then we just sort of stopped for a while. But now that Dustin's on vacation, it is Thursday. We'll just do a little Thursday episode. It might come out tomorrow whenever I feel like posting it, putting it in OBS. Yeah, Dakota's here. Dakota, how are you?
I'm good. I know. I feel like we probably stopped doing the Friday ones because it's like it hit the off season. We were like, there's nothing to talk about. So like once the season comes back, we definitely need to like get back into it.
Yeah, we're in our off-season program at the moment, so we are slowly trying to ramp up and get acclimated, as are the rest of the players. So let's just dive right into it here. So I'm gonna be honest. So when I first saw that we signed Sam Darnold, you know, I wasn't super thrilled about it, just given his career arc. And I think that's sort of the consensus amongst the fan base. But, the more you dig in, the more there is to like. And as of late, he's been balling out. And it's, only OTAs and it's only mini camp, but he looks really good. And I just wanted to ask you, Dakota, has your confidence level in Sam Darnold changed since we signed him this offseason? Or, are you not putting much stock into the offseason program?
I feel like I was one of the people, and you can go back on my TikTok and like there's proof of that. I think I was one of the people who at first was like, "What are like Sam Darnold really?" After like, and then I actually took a look at some of his highlights and I was like, I actually don't hate this. I think that he would be a fantastic transitional quarterback. And of course, this was when I was still very much alive on the JJ McCarthy hype train, which and I genuinely think that Sam Darnold, and I still do think this, I think that he is the best transitional quarterback that we could currently have in the league, especially when you look at Kirk Cousins' play style, his play style, JJ McCarthy's play style. I think that they are very complementary to one another. And so it's a good way for the team to learn to play with a different quarterback, but still one with a similar style to Kirk Cousins. And honest to God, maybe it's just like the queen of positivity vibes. I don't think I was ever as worried as a lot of other people were, because when you look at his previous coaching staff with the teams that he was at before the Niners, none of the coaching staff really made an impression on me. And I feel like a lot of his issues with the other teams that he was on genuinely boiled down to the coaches that were surrounding him. I think having some time on the Niners, especially around Kyle Shanahan, definitely helped him out. They have a really impressive quarterback room with the staff that they have there. And I mean, we saw last season that Kevin O'Connell can really make any quarterback look good in this offense. And so I don't know if my confidence has increased in Sam Darnold, but that's purely just because my confidence has already been fairly higher than most other Vikings fans. I will say I'm still nervous going into this post Kirk Cousins era, but that's to be expected from a previous Kirk Cousins stand. So
Yeah, it's, we talk, a fair amount about Kirk and sort of, like, oh, I'm glad that Kirk's gone sort of thing. Like there's that general sentiment. Like as much as the fans like Kirk, it was obviously time. But the one thing I'll give him credit for is that like he brought this sense of stability at a position where the Vikings haven't had stability in quite some time, really, since like Culpepper, maybe. Like, I mean, I don't really count that one Favre year. Was it two Favre years? Maybe I don't. That wasn't long enough. And then what happened with Teddy was really unfortunate. We had 6 years of like really, really, really solid quarterback play. Just you always knew what you were getting from Kirk. And that's the scary thing right now is like we don't know what we're necessarily getting with Sam Darnold or JJ McCarthy. We think we might know, but we really don't. It's just kind of like the fear of the unknown. And it's scary, but it's also pretty exciting as well. So in terms of my confidence in Sam Darnold, it's actually increased a little bit because, I was more pessimistic when we first signed him. I was like, okay, we could have had like Jacoby Brissett or, some other bridge guy, like Gardner Minshew. Not saying I didn't like Sam Darnold. I liked him for what he was, but you know, there were some questions that I had with him and how that would work because a lot of it was like he'll make some really ill-advised turnovers.
Right.
And that was kind of his problem, with the Jets. Despite Gase and the bad coaching and the lack of talent, he just wasn't ready at age 19 to like be a franchise quarterback. There was so much pressure put on him, and like part of that blame has to go to him, where it's like he didn't perform well. He didn't live up to the expectation of a number 3 overall pick. So, I was a bit pessimistic, but the more I watch him in the offseason program, in particular, his ball placement on these throws is beautiful. He
Mm-hmm.
has a great deep ball. It's just, can you get that level of consistency throughout the whole season where like he's not going to be Kirk Cousins 2.0. He might not even be Baker Mayfield 2.0. Like that comparison to me, probably isn't the best. I look at him as Geno Smith 2.0.
I could see that, yeah.
Geno was a guy who I believe he was drafted by the Jets, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he struggled, and it looked like his career was over. He was a backup for a few years, backing up Phillip Rivers. He gets that opportunity in Seattle and shows everyone, hey, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Like my career isn't over. Like I revived it. And Darnold has a chance to do that here. And if he has a really good year, I'm not saying like 4,000 yards passing good, but like kind of like 3,500 plus area, and JJ McCarthy still isn't quite ready according to the coaching staff, they might bring him back for one more year.
And I wouldn't be mad about that.
Like I wouldn't be mad either if he plays well. Like I know everyone wants to play with the shiny new toy, but if you got to let Kevin O'Connell cook there. I trust him, inherently with quarterback development. So
Absolutely.
I'm actually more confident in Sam Darnold heading into this season than I was beforehand. And speaking of new additions, the Vikings not too long ago signed, NFC North tight end. He's pretty much everyone's tight end now. Robert Tonyan, he's on the Lions practice squad. Then he was a Packer for a couple of years. Then he was with Chicago, and now he's here. So he's got the NFC North down. And he's also looked really good in practice. Alec Lewis pointed it out. Like he really stands out, particularly during, these mini camps. And I'm just wondering if Hawkinson is going to be hurt for the first however many games, and Oliver is your blocking tight end. Is Robert Tonyan the tight end 1 here? Is it Nick Muse? Is it Johnny Munt? Who is tight end 1 for these Vikings?
Well, and then you also have to consider the fact that Harry just became a tight end as well.
Harry, tight end 1.
Just move him over.
Let's do it.
It's really funny because I think we all sort of knew going into this off season, into this mini camp, training camp season, that there was going to be a little bit of a competition for tight end 1. But I think most Vikings fans were obviously more focused on quarterback 1, sort of, who's going to be our quarterback. So I think it's really interesting that if we're having any sort of competition here, it is for the tight end, because if you consider just how much of an impact TJ Hawkinson has had on this team since he joined, it really, really, really shows how important now that tight end position has been to the Minnesota Vikings. And not just since TJ Hawkinson, obviously, with the love of my life, Kyle Rudolph, the tight end position. When you think of the Minnesota Vikings offense, first you think of the really good wide receiver, and then you go to the tight end position. So I would not be surprised if we do end up going with Tonyan. I think it would probably benefit us to have another veteran in that spot. Not that Muse and Munt and Oliver aren't veterans, but his tenure within the league, specifically within the NFC North, we have seen other NFC North tight ends, of course, TJ Hawkinson coming from the Lions, just really break out within our system. I think the NFC North is going to be the most competitive division in the NFL this year. And so I think having somebody that has that experience on all these other offenses is going to be killer for our offense. I would see him in the tight end 1 position. I would see Oliver sticking with that sort of block tight end situation. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit more of a rotation though. We see Muse, we see Munt in there more. I'm interested to see too, with all these additions to the tight end position. Obviously, we've been seeing that TJ Hawkinson is at these training camps, whether or not he's actually participating, but he has been there. I think recently we heard that he is progressing a little bit ahead of schedule in his treatment and his recovery, which is fantastic. But as a survivor with a knee injury, I am probably one of the first people to tell you that you can think that you are at the top of your game, but one small thing can really, really set you back. And so even if TJ Hawkinson is ready, I think the fact that we are collecting all of these tight ends like they are infinity stones is because we are going to have TJ Hawkinson sit just a little bit longer than I think a lot of Vikings fans are going to want. So, with that being said, to answer your question, I think Tonyan is a fantastic choice to replace our TJ Hawkinson just for a little while here. I think he, like you said, with everyone pointing out that he's been doing fantastic at minicamp, I think his play style, his experience is really going to benefit this offense. And honestly, I think it is good that we send somebody that has more experience into this offense at the tight end position. No offense to Oliver or Munt or Muse. Love those guys to death. Their inexperience at times has cost us a little bit on this offense, specifically last season. So I think I see the vision. I see you, KOC, and I love it. I'm here for it.
Yeah. So my thoughts on the tight end position. Tonyan, I don't know if he's tight end 1. And the reason I say this has nothing to do with Tonyan or what he hasn't done or what he has done. It's more so that we just signed him. Like we just signed him off the street. And as good as these practices have been, like, can you just like throw him in there? Okay, you're tight end 1 of this offense now. And he could be a nice complementary tight end. He's like, that bigger tight end that you can just throw the ball to in the end zone. Because, I genuinely believe that this team really likes Johnny Munt. Like, as, the best third tight end in the league, as Kevin O'Connell referred to him as. I feel like they're going to try and split the load between Johnny Munt and Tonyan and maybe a little Muse in there. Maybe if he makes the roster, they can sprinkle in a little bit of Muse, not much. But I think those are your 2 guys. And Munt's a smaller tight end who's probably a bit quicker on his feet, whereas Tonyan is the bigger target in the red zone sort of guy. I think they both get utilized in this offense. But I just don't see Tonyan as like a tight end 1. Like anyone you sign this late in the offseason isn't, to me at least, like that number 1 tight end. Like there's going to be a void that's going to have to be filled. And I don't think it's going to be fully filled so long as Hawkinson is out, because that is so hard to replace.
It's hard to fill his shoes. It really is.
Well, yeah, he's a top 5 tight end in the league, right? Like, I know like Eagles fans try and say like, oh, I'd rather have Dallas Goedert. Stop. Hawkinson is so underappreciated just because he's not like insanely athletic, but
or dating Taylor Swift
or that. I mean, better date Billie Eilish or something, get his game up. So
date me. I mean,
oh, good Lord.
I think he's engaged though.
Yeah. Coda's coming, TJ. Coda is coming.
Hey.
So yeah, so that's the tight end situation. Now let's get into the most pressing topic of the offseason thus far. Without question, nothing's more important than this, not even Justin Jefferson. It's the winter whiteout jerseys. It's the winter whiteouts.
Oh, wait. Should I do like a nice like blue, like a wintry blue, or should I just stick with the purple? No, let's just stick with the purple.
Just stick with the purple. It's the Vikings. But, I feel like we all like these, at least both of us here. We talked a bit pre-show, but to make this more interesting, on a scale of 1 to 10, trying to be as objective as you can with jerseys,
Mhm.
like where would you rank this? If one is just like the Giants jersey, we'll show you in a second here, and the new jerseys, which I'm about to put on the screen right here. Give me 1 second, y'all. 3, 2, 1. Boom.
So cold.
Byron Murphy.
Literally cold.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, Coda, where are you putting these jerseys?
I'm gonna put them. I personally am gonna put them at a 9. I put them at a 9. Obviously, it's no secret that the primetime purple is my favorite, and I miss it dearly. But these are definitely a close second. I know a lot of people are complaining about the silver accents, but honest to God, the very first thing that my eye went to was the silver accents. I think that they are so incredibly clever in the placement of the silver accents. I think they make the purple pop even more. In fact, I think obviously, you know, the designer of the uniforms mentioned that because these are winter whiteout, they're the winter warriors. They wanted to take away the gold because they wanted to do a more cold toned color palette. They wanted to accentuate the ice. And obviously, you can't do that with blue. We don't have blue in our color scheme. So going with silver, I think, is phenomenal, especially when you consider that the Vikings have a very blue toned purple for their logo, but it still does have hints of red. And so I think the silver does a really excellent job of bringing out the blue within the purple to make it look even more cold toned. I also, and Lupagus from the One Bar and Lupagus show, and I have been talking about this on Twitter all day. On the back, they have right above the last name on the players, they have this really gorgeous embroidery that is that sort of mimics the Norse Celtic embroidery and runes that obviously our names are taken from the Vikings. And I think that that is such a clever way to honor the heritage, the Norse heritage of Minnesota, of the Minnesota Vikings. It's one of the reasons why I continue to love this franchise so much, is the fact that they pay homage to the Vikings, to the Norse mythology, to the roots of Minnesota in such a respectful and historic way. And it's just the little details of these that I don't think other teams are really doing. It's classy, it's cold, it plays on winter of the cold north in such a fantastic way. And I just needed to say this. Cam Bynum's little giggle when he saw them is the exact same little giggle that I had when I woke up this morning and saw them. So like I feel seen by Cam Bynum right now.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to be objective when it comes to just jersey designs because you're really trying to create like a point of comparison.
Mhm.
So I can only compare these to the purple, the primetime purples, which we
Mhm.
had for a couple of years. Now, personally, I didn't like the primetime purples. I thought the yellow didn't go well with the helmet. Like there wasn't much. Like if you're gonna do yellow lettering for the primetime purples, like the horns on your helmet should also be yellow. To
I
like
agree with that. I will say, not to cut you off, but I will say the primetime purple worked because for those couple of years we were doing sort of this like neon theme that was sort of like the theming that the Vikings were going for. And so I think they worked well with that. Whereas this, we're slowly getting back to sort of the like Vikings roots, the cold North roots, the classics. And so I think that's why these work a little bit more, is that the coldness of Minnesota works better with the Vikings name versus like the
yeah.
neonness.
And I also think with the primetime purples, players would customize more, which actually went against the style that they were trying to go for. They players would have like sleeves and different kinds of shoes and socks, and it would just kind of completely ruin the aesthetic that they were trying to go for with primetime purple. I wasn't a huge fan of those. I love these. These are a 10 for me. If I'm just comparing them directly to the primetime purple, these are such an upgrade. They're I like minimalistic jersey designs. This is a great example of using, the right colors together in a way that isn't like super in your face. It is just white, it's just silver, and it's just purple, and that's it. And I think it looks especially great for players like Byron Murphy and Jordan Addison, Ivan Pace, guys with single digit numbers. I saw the one that Aaron Jones was wearing, and it looked weird because, you have like the space in between the two threes was too large. So actually, I could probably give it a 9 for that. Yeah, we'll go with a 9. But other than that, I mean, these are sick. I want to buy a Jordan Addison jersey in winter whiteout. That would be so cool. But if we're talking bad jerseys real quick, let me show you something. We play the Giants in week 1, and they're going to be wearing these beauties right here.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Do you have a picture of the pants? The pants are the worst
I
part.
don't have a picture of the pants.
They're
Look
like
at how happy Daniel Jones is.
Oh my god.
He is so happy. I've never seen him smile. I still haven't seen him smile. Just so happy.
The rip off of the Michigan helmets with like the red going through the blue. I think.
Oh my gosh, it does look like the Michigan helmets. It's
right?
It looks like subbed out the yellow for red.
It's bad. It's so bad.
It's
the blue of the helmet.
UFL jersey designs over here.
The blue of the helmet doesn't even match the blue of the jerseys because the blue of the jerseys.
There's multiple shades of blue. There's like a navy. There's a standard blue. There's a light blue. Why are there 3 shades of blue? I'll never know. But it's horrible. I'm glad I'm not a Giants fan. They're still celebrating that playoff win over us because we had Donatello as a defensive coordinator, and they haven't had anything nice ever since.
They're going to walk out onto the field in these jerseys, and the refs are going to look at them and go, "No, you're forfeiting. Just get off the field. You're forfeiting. We're not doing this today." And I don't blame them.
Yeah, it's, unnecessary roughness.
For the people at home watching. Yeah.
It's just awful. Awful. Now, we'll spare you the screen sharing so you don't have to look at that anymore. So the last thing I want to get into is I want to talk a bit about the social media team. Specifically, there's been a lot of discourse online that the Vikings social media team is doing a poor job of showcasing JJ McCarthy and OTAs and minicamp, because it feels like anytime we get a 60-second OTA highlight video, we get maybe 3 seconds of one clip of JJ McCarthy throwing in slow motion, and you don't even see the angle in which he threw to. It's just a throwing motion, and they cut to the next player or some B-roll. And I have my own thoughts on that. But, you wanted to defend the social media team. You actually think that people are being too harsh on them. So I'll let you make your case.
So the thing is that I think people are going to hear you say that and be like, what? Coda's defending the social media team? Because it's not that I dislike the social media team's campaign. It's not that I dislike how they go about running, however they decide to run their social media, that is on them. Obviously they get their notes from the director, from the whatever. I do have some valid criticisms of the social media team as a whole. I see teams like the Chargers, the Bills, and the Lions, and I think, wow, we could be doing a lot more in regards to just engagement with the fans in general. But where I think the social media team is doing it right is that we have to consider the fact that looking at this offseason as a whole, and y'all are just going to have to stick with me with this, okay? If we look at this whole offseason as a whole, we look at how little information in general we have been getting from the Vikings organization in regards to Kirk Cousins, in regards to the the Justin Jefferson extension. Obviously we were getting, we're not trading him. We're working on it, but we weren't getting any actual details, or the fact that you look at how many teams had their new jerseys leaked this offseason, and the Minnesota Vikings were one of them, despite the fact that the winter whiteout was something that has been highly requested from fans for 2 seasons now. The social media team is doing a fantastic job of keeping us on the edge of our seat. Now, it is no surprise that Kevin O'Connell has JJ McCarthy, too many JJs. JJ McCarthy on a plan, a progression plan. We've known this. We knew that this was going to be the case regardless on who we ended up taking. And so I think it is smart that when you have such a highly anticipated player like JJ McCarthy on the Minnesota Vikings, you keep his progression to yourself. You don't want not only do you not want your competitors to know how he's doing, you don't want your competitors to think, "Oh, we've got this just because this rookie can't do this simple whatever at training camp." You also keep the fans excited. It is a great way to keep the fans talking about JJ McCarthy. It is a great way to keep the fans on the edge of their seat being like, I got this guy's jersey. Like, how is he going to play in preseason? How is he going to play? It keeps the conversation going, which keeps the Minnesota Vikings and JJ McCarthy relevant. It's sort of that. I hate to pull this comparison, and I know the dude bros at home are gonna hate that I'm pulling this comparison. But when you look at someone like Taylor Swift, who drops Easter eggs, who gives minimal information, and then you think about how long her fans can talk about that. Taylor Swift could literally go, "Oh, I had so much fun in New York City," and do an orange heart emoji, and her fans would be talking about that for weeks. The Minnesota Vikings are doing something similar with JJ McCarthy by giving us little tiny snippets of him throwing. Because then it's like, oh, who was he throwing to? I wonder what that play was. Did he connect? He looked really good. I'd love to see him in more. It keeps the Minnesota Vikings fan base interested. It keeps the Minnesota Vikings and JJ McCarthy relevant. And it also helps the Minnesota Vikings control the story as they have been doing with almost everything this offseason. And so I personally want to give a huge shout out to the social media team for doing a phenomenal job at keeping our attention and controlling what we see and how we see it and when we see it. Because these jerseys could have been leaked weeks ago, just like the Lions jerseys, but they weren't. I think they actually were kind of leaked, and not even pictures of them, just the fact that they were coming out in general was leaked like 3 days ago. And then on top of that, to pull fun at that, they had the players leak the jerseys before the team even announced them. That's clever. That's a fun way to poke fun at these other teams that don't have the social media team, keeping things under wrap, or whoever is in charge of that sort of thing, keeping these things under wrap. So while, yes, like I've said in the past, I think the Minnesota Vikings could be doing more in regards to staying relevant in like social media trends and connecting with fans, overall, with how they're treating JJ McCarthy, with how they're treating things like these new uniforms with the Justin Jefferson extension, my hats are off. And of course, this is coming from somebody whose social media is like their whole job. So
Yeah. I get your point of, the Vikings have an incentive to protect JJ McCarthy by not showing things that are going to get fans irrationally upset and call for Kevin's head. Oh, he threw this incomplete pass and it's 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Fire everyone. Because there's always those people online, and I get it. And there's just so much, I guess, nervousness and anticipation regarding how does he look, because we haven't really seen him yet. And at Michigan, we didn't get a huge sample size. I get it, but I feel like there are ways to, give the fans more of what they want to see while also protecting, your 10th overall pick from just like unwarranted criticism. Like, would it not even just this year, but like I don't think I ever really see the Vikings social media team post multiple angles of certain plays, so you can see, like they'll do cut ups where it's like, oh, it's a receiver catching a ball or it's a quarterback throwing it, but they'll never show like, an angle that lets you see the entire play until closer to like training camp. And it's, there's something to be said about, keeping mystery involved and fan engagement high, but I just feel like they could give a little bit more and still, complete the objective of protecting the people they need to protect. Side note, I wasn't a fan of the weird, like the Apple thing they did for the schedule release.
I loved it. I
I
liked it.
I get they were trying to, like, tease the jerseys, the whiteout jerseys with the night switch thing and but and I love the jerseys, but it felt stale. Felt like they were doing a parody of Apple and not like, going all out for the schedule release. But I guess there's just certain seasons where there's not as much hype for the games themselves because there's not a lot of games that we're favored in. Like,
No.
if we're being honest, would it surprise me if this team won only 6 games this year? No. Like, that's a very real possibility. So I think teams look at these schedule releases through like, a 2 or 3 year window and say, okay, what is the year we really have to capitalize on? And I don't think it's this year. I think it's next year. I think it's when we have all this cap space and JJ McCarthy is finally starting at quarterback, most likely. I think that's when you're going to see better social media content because they recognize, okay, this is the window where we really need to get people excited. It kind of felt like they phoned it in a little bit. And I know they're good people who work behind the scenes constantly. I'm not trying to dunk on anyone who works for the Vikings specifically.
Mhm.
They're good at what they do. I just this year personally, I haven't been a huge fan, and I feel like the fans could get a little more than what they're getting. Like when you have to go to Score North's page just to get like a full sequence of throws and catches all in one shot, that's not a good thing. You're giving Score North free attention because you're not providing the thing you're supposed to provide to the fans. So now Score North is scooping in, and now like clips from Alec Lewis are getting traction more so than whatever you're posting. That's not a good thing.
It
So
it could also be, because a lot of times the way that things like this work, like you have a team that is like separate from social media and their entire like their goal is to film these practices. So it could be that they're not filming the right angles. It could be, it genuinely could be as simple as somebody in another department isn't doing enough for the social media
they
team to
maybe
be able
only
to.
have like a couple of camera angles where it's just
Right.
like one or two people, right? So we don't really know what their camera setup is specifically. I'm sure that they've got top of the line equipment, but like
Yeah, what's the specs of
it's not
the camera?
360 degree like, you're watching a game on TV and you get like every single angle ever. It's just like a couple different angles and some really good photographers or videographers.
Right.
So
I get my news from Paul Allen, who about 7 hours ago tweeted out, my best friend Paul Allen. Hi, bestie. Who tweeted out saying, "Super windy day at Vikings minicamp, and JJ McCarthy passes cut through it like a clinched knife through butter. Holy cow, does he have a wonderful arm talent?" And I take what Paul Allen says to like the highest degree. So if PA says that it looks good, I'm gonna go based on what my bestie says.
yeah, he's got incredible arm talent. Just as far as like how hard he could throw the ball, layering a bit questionable, but I mean he can throw it really hard. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So I mean, like his McCarthy's just like velocity on his throws has been so much better than Darnold, but it's
Mhm.
Darnold's ball placement and just overall accuracy downfield is what's separating him from McCarthy right now, and that's to be expected. McCarthy's a rookie.
Yeah.
McCarthy's 21 years old, and Sam Darnold knows a thing or two about being super young and thrown into the fire. Darnold seems like a great bridge quarterback because he is just so willing to uh, give his thoughts on things and, be a mentor. Not every quarterback is like that. Some are like, it's not my job to teach you how to do this. But,
Mhm.
Darnold has an extra layer of empathy, and you have McCown in the quarterback room who worked with Darnold and is just very familiar with developing young quarterbacks. We saw it last year with Bryce Young. Even though he struggled, you still have someone with experience. I mean, Johnny Manziel, who is a bit of a wild card himself, went out of his way to say, like, McCown is just such a great person to learn from. Even
Yeah.
when he was a backup quarterback, McCown is someone you want in that quarterback room. And of course, Kevin O'Connell. But if I had to grade the social media team this offseason, I'd give it a C. You know,
Yeah. Understandable. I'd give them like a B minus C plus.
yeah, I think that's fair. But we got to wrap this thing up. To Dakota, where can we find you on socials?
You can find me on Twitter at Spitfire Dakota. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Western Dakota. You can also, I don't know, I guess people find me in public now, not in like a weird, creepy way, but like I'm in public and people are like, oh my God, you're Coda and you do that stuff on like that podcast and you're on TikTok. And I'm like, hey, yeah, that's me. So I guess you can not stalkily find me in public. Don't find me in public.
Yeah. Just friendly advisory. Don't stalk people.
Don't stalk me, but like if you see me in public and you want to say hi, just say hi. Like I'm friendly.
Well, I never go out in public. I just stay to my confines because I'm broke, penniless,
Oh.
don't have autonomy to do anything. But if you want to find me on that hell app that's called X now, I guess it's at producer Tyler with 2 underscores. But yeah, that's VikesNow for the day. Y'all have a good night.
Bye.